All right, thanks, Ricky, and hello, everyone. So this is our panel on investment in Bitcoin companies and Lightning companies. Somewhere in the audience today, maybe somewhere in the audience that's listening from home or listening to the recording of this, there's somebody with a brilliant idea, the next African unicorn. And they realize that they need to scale their idea, they need funding. So we're talking about funders, investment, and we're joined here by a rockstar panel of three fantastic individuals. Ry is an angel investor. You can tell us a little bit more about what angel investment means. And then both Dr. Khushboo and Melody are from venture capital firms. And they will tell you a little bit more about what their firms do. And yeah, so we can get started. I don't want to spend too much time talking because I wanted to listen to our panelists, but we will make some time available at the end for you to ask some questions. So while you're listening, please prepare some questions ahead of time. So without further ado, for each of you, I'm going to ask, why Bitcoin? Why are you on stage here today as an investor? And maybe to make it a little bit more difficult, why not just invest in Bitcoin? So please bear that in mind, and then also give us a good overview of yourself, your investment strategy, and how people can approach you should they feel they want to. So firstly, I'd like to introduce Ry. Ry, I know you are an angel investor, so you can maybe explain a little bit about that when you introduce yourself.
Sure. Hello, everybody. Ry Sterling. First and foremost, I run global head of BD for IBEX, which is a Lightning infrastructure company. But for the last 10 years, I have been an angel investor. I like to say I started out as a broke angel, meaning I had no money. I was 24, and we went around and we gathered money from our network, and we started SPVs and made investments from there. After a few exits and growing, I guess I could consider myself an angel. And what we started with, our thesis was, what were we interested in? So we were interested in fintechs. We were interested in the consumer package industry, so we got into a rum company early, the cannabis industry. We rolled the most joints in the world. And from there, we actually got into the Bitcoin industry in 2017, just as, retail or personal investment. And then as we moved into Bitcoin, I started working in Bitcoin. We quickly realized that all those other investments, while they were great and raising money for them, you start to do the math and like, well, had I put those 3 Mazdas in Bitcoin, like the guy said earlier, then in 2017, it'd be a different story now. So we pivoted into our strategy into Bitcoin-only companies. And our thought process was the only thing that will outperform Bitcoin is likely going to be Bitcoin companies. And further from that, which of those Bitcoin companies will be earning in Bitcoin? I think there are going to be very few companies in the future that will be making their revenue in Bitcoin earnings. And Bitcoin companies are going to be those. So that's a little bit about me and where our investment thesis is.
Thanks, Ry. That makes sense. So you're saying that companies that earn Bitcoin, potentially hold Bitcoin on the balance sheet, they already benefit from the upside. But of course, it's a commercial enterprise, so they're generating profits on top of that. So you're getting a compounding effect. Okay, great, thanks. And then next up is Dr. Khushboo. I know you are with Lightning Ventures. Could you share a little bit about yourself and Lightning Ventures, your firm, and the types of companies that you invest in?
Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Khushboo Khullar. So I'm a venture partner at Lightning Ventures. So Lightning Ventures is a US-based VC firm, and we invest in Bitcoin native startups, and IBEX is one of our portfolio companies. And we have another platform that we recently launched in July 2024. That's called Thunder Funder, where even non-accredited investors can invest. So we have 2 platforms, one for accredited and another one for non-accredited. As far as my personal journey is concerned, why I chose Bitcoin, well, there's no one single reason that I can, pinpoint. It's a mix of things like I've done my PhD in economics, that too in energy security, and I have been working extensively on econometric modeling, ARIMA, the autoregressive integrated moving average, and seasonal regressive moving average. I mean, I've done this throughout. Then I joined a bank. I was in a Japanese bank where we used to give big loans to big corporates where your due diligence is quite strict, and it's a very not risk taking. They don't have that appetite. So very I mean, coming from that zone to this zone where, as you mentioned, Carel, there is always a, like, should I go for YOY? If I look at BTC CAGR of around 60% to what a VC gives is around 25 to 40%, depending on the VC that you are selecting. Why we decided? Because someone has to, and I think it has a hockey stick growth in future. Still, we are very early. There are some handful of VCs which are into this space, and we feel like somebody has to take that move. Somebody has to be the risk taker, and we see a moonshot growth. And I mean, there are some startups that we see could do really well. And the investment thesis of Lightning Ventures is very simple. If you're building something groundbreaking in Bitcoin, FOSS, or anything around this ecosystem, do reach out to us. We are also breaking the myth that it is very difficult to contact a VC, get in touch with them. We are making this process very streamlined, very easy. So go to our website, ltng.ventures or thunderfunder.com, and even if you want to bounce ideas, please reach out to us. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you very much, Dr. Khushboo. And Melody? So I think that when we spoke last, you talked a bit about the potential of crypto solutions that can address problems in Africa. So maybe that's something that you could also mention when you introduce yourself and your firm, P1 Ventures. But of course, the most important thing is, what is your investment thesis? Who do you invest in? And yeah.
Hi everyone, so my name is Melody Ama. I'm an investor with P1 Ventures. We're a pan-African early stage and VC firm, primarily doing sort of seed stage, but we'll do a little bit of pre-seed and Series A as well. So for us, we're passionate about Africa. That is the core. Interested in how tech solutions can solve problems in Africa. And with that, obviously, fintech is obviously a big part of a lot of investments you see on the continent. But with us, we're interested to see how Web3, that also including crypto, Bitcoin, etc., can help to accelerate the solutions that we see on the continent. So yeah, that's us. We have done we're kind of a new fund, I would say probably about 5-ish years, done about 30 investments to date, and in that has crossed any sector at all. But for those who are building in Web3, Bitcoin, crypto, whatever, definitely feel free to reach out either on our website or speak to me afterwards. We're always looking for interesting founders who are building and using innovative tech to do so.
Okay, thank you. So we're sitting here at the Adopting Bitcoin conference in Cape Town in South Africa. And I think it's not by chance that the three of you are here. I'm hearing some comments from you about the potential in Africa and the way that crypto could solve some of these problems. So I think this is definitely something that all panelists today have in common. So on that note, Ry, could I maybe ask you, what do you see as some of the unique opportunities for Bitcoin companies in Africa?
Yeah, absolutely. It's actually interesting. My Bitcoin investing journey started with African Bitcoin companies. That's where I saw the most opportunity. I first came over to look for opportunities about 2.5 years ago in the Bitcoin space. I spent about 6 months across 5 countries, talking to different founders, mainly about Lightning infrastructure, but also while doing so, seeing really great founders that were working on cool projects. And it's interesting when you're coming from a sales side, I'm selling an infrastructure product, from my day job, but then I'm also meeting all these really great founders. And when you're selling an infrastructure product, usually people are telling you they're lowering their numbers, they're telling you they're not doing as much volume as they are because they don't want to pay your fees. So you really get the real grit of who the founder is, how they really operate, etc. And so when you ask them, are you raising money at the end? And they say yes, you know all the truth. Versus if you come in as an investor, they might overinflate their numbers, et cetera, et cetera. So you really get a true perspective. And I saw a lot of that in my time. So mainly the interest was in Bitcoin companies that maybe aren't necessarily targeting Bitcoiners. So I had the honor of partaking in Gridless last year, an amazing company out of Kenya that does Bitcoin energy mining. There is an amazing company here in the room, actually one of the organizers or co-founder, Orange. They're a B2B payments business. They're servicing fintechs, so traditional business, not necessarily consumers or Bitcoiners, but banks, remittance companies, etc. And then there's another one in Kenya called Jua, and they're a peer-to-peer marketplace for Bitcoin and stablecoin. So all these, while they're not really focused directly towards Bitcoin investors, Bitcoiners, which is kind of what we preferred. So when I first started thinking about investing in this space, the American space has a very I don't want to say incestuous VC space for Bitcoiners, but kind of, they all kind of agree on the same deals, et cetera, and they all kind of jump in together. And it seemed like it had been very much, maybe not diluted, but aggressively pursued in 2021 when Lightning first kind of came on the map with El Salvador, IBEX, et cetera. So it seemed like it had already been diluted. So Africa for me really was like a fresh start, and the amount of hustle and the founders that I met within Africa, I felt like were some of the most ruthlessly aggressive startup founders I'd ever met. So that was very inspiring to me. The ability to not take no for an answer was something that I really liked. And so for that reason, Africa kind of became our primary focus for Bitcoin investment.
You're saying Africa founders know how to hustle? Okay, thanks for that answer. That's a great answer, fantastic. And Dr. Khushboo, I know you invest in many regions, specifically in underserved markets like Asia and Latin America as well. Now, this is a hard question for you. Can you differentiate maybe a little bit? So what's the difference in the landscapes between Africa and these other emerging markets, or are they very similar?
Okay, just to begin with, we have more footprint in US and Europe regions, which is more mature, But in 2025, our goal is to move towards other regions, particularly Africa also. Why? Because I would say the founders they have like high risk-taking capacity. I would say, put it that way. And second, it's my personal observation. There's a lot of experimentation going on here. There's a lot of innovation happening here. And on top of that, the challenge is it's an underserved market in terms of the sufficient VC capital. When it comes to VC capital, having great business model, having great product market fit, VC capital is quite difficult. So, looking at the challenges, we are thinking of, expanding our footprint in these regions because we feel, we see a potential, and particularly we want to support seed and pre-seed. And I also want to give a shout out to Abu Bakar, who does wonderful work. I, am in constant touch with him to discuss some deals. And I think that's the best way, to have a conversation with the local who understands and who is very closer to the ecosystem. So that's the effort that we are doing, and hopefully we'll have more deals from this continent.
Okay, thank you very much for that answer. That adds a lot of context for us. And then Melody, and this is also maybe a bit of more of a personal question. I know you were born in Nigeria. So is there an element that's maybe a little bit more personal for you when you look at founders and companies in Africa?
So I think not only me, but the entire P1 team, we're all Africans investing in Africa. While we do have global experiences, this is where our heart is. And yeah, we are very passionate about solving the problems that we see in Africa. And I think maybe just linking to my first answer a little bit, and in transparency, our fund, we are more broadly Web3. That's sort of what we're interested in. And I think there are a lot of problems on the continent that Web3 is suited to solve are also very prevalent in Nigeria, to mention. So, for example, we are very interested in how sort of stablecoins are being used to address cross-border issues, where you have businesses who have invoices, they have needs for a hard currency, but due to a lack of liquidity, they're struggling with that. So, we see a number of startups who are using stablecoins to enable people to make those cross-border payments. Remittances is another one as well. So, also Africa as a whole, we do have a very large diaspora community. Nigeria probably having one of the largest. And with that, I think the flows that come from remittances are staggering, and yet the transaction costs are super high. So we see startups using stablecoins to reduce those prices. And I think in other regions as well, so our fund, we represent northeast, southwest of Africa. And in Egypt, for example, maybe less of a pressing issue than, let's say, cross-border payments in the gaming side. So we have looked into GameFi sort of startups, Web3 gaming, and we've invested in an Egyptian gaming platform there. So for us, the way we like to see it is there are a lot of large incumbent issues that, let's say, the centralized world, the governments have not been able to solve, and there's a huge gap that we are seeing individual founders fill using Web3, blockchain, etc. technology. Yeah.
Okay, thanks so much for that one. So I'd like to put a statement out there. You can say whether you agree or not, but the statement I want to make is that we're talking here about investing in Bitcoin companies, founders in the Bitcoin space. But as early adopters, we are seeing a rapid increase in the personal wealth of Bitcoiners that adopted Bitcoin 5-10 years ago. So as the price of Bitcoin continues to rise, we'll see these early adopters with a lot of money on their hands that they need to do something with, right? So a two-part question. Assuming, if you disagree with me, say you disagree, but assuming you agree with me, two-part question. How does this affect the Bitcoin investment landscape? Maybe there's more investment capital available from early adopters as angels, but also for companies and startups in the space that's serving Bitcoiners, developing products and services for Bitcoiners. They also now have access to a market that's rapidly expanding. So maybe can you give us your thoughts on my statement and these sort of two questions around it?
Yeah, if I can remember both, but I totally agree with you. As we go through this next cycle, of course, there are going to be more early adopters that come into wealth and will want to put that somewhere other than just hold in BTC. And as an angel investor, yes, of course, getting a return is great. That's what we're investing for, but also we want to do things that inspire us and, interest us. So even if it doesn't potentially, out-yield BTC, getting involved in these Bitcoin companies is very inspiring, and we believe they will, but it's something to do other than just sit and hold your BTC. And I think a lot of early Bitcoiners are looking to create the forbidden word yield with their Bitcoin, but in a proper way. So I would agree with that. I also think that founders of Bitcoin companies, as they make exits or as their companies grow, they are going to not only have had the experience of running a Bitcoin company, which, no offense, most Bitcoin VCs don't have. They are traditional fintech folks that came over with a lot of money, and then they tell you how to run your Lightning company or how to grow it, and well, they don't have experience growing a company in Bitcoin. So you will have founders of Bitcoin companies with capital who will want to go to young and hustling entrepreneurs and deploy that capital to grow more Bitcoin businesses. So I don't know if that answered your questions, but...
Yeah, for sure. And of course, some people take maybe a bit of a philosophical approach as well, and they understand that if they can support expansion of the ecosystem, then that also supports their primary and most important asset that they're holding.
Yes.
Dr. Khushboo, do you take a specific view on this, of the sort of the Bitcoin adopters or the market of Bitcoin adopters expanding? Is it something that you take into account?
I have a slightly different perspective on this. Price is like one of the factor. It keeps you in the news. It's like even who's not interested in Bitcoin, but because of the price, they're like, okay, let me at least have a look. And as far as as a store of value, there's a check mark already done. Okay, there's no question about it. But as any technology, there's an adoption curve which happens gradually. So from store of value to medium of exchange, it's gonna take time. It's not gonna happen just because today it's 100K, tomorrow it'll be 200K. But it will motivate other founders and people and VCs to get into this space. But we still need traction. We still need validation. Just the price and the technology is not the validation. We need 2 more steps beyond that. So that's my perspective, but this is a good sign, and I hope we are not the difficult VCs who dictates.
No. It was not to target you.
No, just confirming, because we feel like the founders should be the captain of the ship. We are just there to provide the capital and some guidance in between. So that's my perception.
Okay, that's also extremely good points that you're making. Thank you. And Melody, I think after I've given you opportunity to speak, we'll open the floor to some questions. So I'm going to give you an extra, if you want to give any closing remarks, you can also add that. So you can decide, do you want to talk about Bitcoin adopters and the market, or do you want to just give some closing remarks? It's up to you.
I think the two of them covered sort of the remarks on there, especially, obviously with, as a fund, we do like to believe that we wouldn't push anything on anyone. And yeah, we are definitely here to support people in this space where it does feel like, there's a philosophical angle, there is a general adoption piece, regardless of maybe our lack of experience in the space. We're here to back people doing that. But yeah, I think that's all I'd add.
Okay. So, how does it work? Sound team, how does it work if there's, we've got a roaming mic. So if anybody has a question for any of the panelists, please put up your hand.
Thank you all. What are the most exciting new Bitcoin startups that you guys have seen recently, or what would you like to see being built on top of Bitcoin?
I think anybody can just take it if you feel it.
I mean, I can say a little bit about our portfolio companies. Like in Europe, we generally, invest in primarily 3 areas where we are seeing interest. It's either wallets, exchanges, or lightning payments. But here in Asia or other parts of the region, there's prediction markets, which is really new. We are, looking at this deal, which is quite new for us. We haven't done this before, and there's, synthetic dollars or stable coins on Lightning. Those sort of projects, and we have in our portfolio company, we have a company called Jan3, which is pushing network state, and plus they have their own wallet, which is like fantastic. So if you want to start, that's how you do it from a government level also, and from adoption level also. So, and in fact, we have invested in few African companies, but I would like to see more good projects over here. So that's what we are looking at. Yeah.
Any others?
Yeah, I'd love to give a few shout outs. One is in the room currently, Orange. If you haven't seen them or talked to any of their founders, I highly recommend you do. They're doing, we've got Mayor, please raise your hand. If you see him out in the crowd, give him a chat. They're doing amazing things in the B2B space here in South Africa, or around Africa. And they are, again, strictly for B2B businesses targeting traditional fintech. So again, not Bitcoiners. Another one I'm very excited about is called Resolver. They are a reinsurtech platform doing split premium payments all the way up to the reinsurers in Lloyd's of London. It's an amazing tech. It's unbelievable. They're doing it in Bitcoin, and those distributions to the reinsurers will be done in fiat over Lightning. I think everyone knows how big the insurance market in the world and how much control Lloyd's has. It's quite incredible, the fact that they are even touching the space. And then lastly, Janet, I loved it. More just an honor than, I'm excited about. I've been excited about them for years, even before I was an investor in their company. What Gridless is doing, I think, is going to transform Africa from an energy perspective and empower Africans. 500 million Africans, I hope, by 2030 or whenever the data set. But it's just a phenomenal project. And if you're interested in Bitcoin mining and energy in Africa, talk to Janet back there. She's a wealth of knowledge and resources, and I'd like to consider them close friends. And the founder, Eric, just is a great guy and has welcomed me into Africa with open arms. So those are my 3 shout-outs.
Okay, great. Ability?
Yeah, one's in the room. Carel here with MoneyBadger. So we've been looking at MoneyBadger closely for the past few weeks. If he's not introduced himself already, so anyone in the room, essentially what they do is enable merchants, also PSBs, to accept crypto payments, but receive it in fiat, have fast settlement, that sort of thing. And that's sort of the intersection there with Bitcoin, and also understanding that we're also in a climate where merchants will still want to receive fiat, essentially. So that's been interesting. I think we've also seen a number of things, again, just more Web3 broadly, in identity. So hundreds of millions of Africans don't have formal identification, so sort of how people are using blockchain to overcome that hurdle there. We've seen stuff in certification, verification with education and stuff like that. What else? I think generally a lot of the things that we see that we think are going to solve big problems is in sort of blockchain more broadly, using smart contracts, etc. So if anyone's in that space as well, definitely speak to us.
Okay, thanks. And thank you for the question. Any other questions?
Does anyone know what happened to NFTs?
No, but if you're interested, there was an article by George Michaela in Bitcoin Magazine the other day talking about how it was a $53 billion lost opportunity by the Bitcoin community by not accepting that side of things. Solana, he was basically saying how all that money went to Solana, so I'm sure there will be plenty of debate over that.
Hello. My question is, have you ever lost money on Bitcoin-only companies? What would you say would be the reason what went wrong?
Hard one.
I'll let the earlier Bitcoin investors go first.
I won't name it. I won't name the company, but yeah, no, we were about to, but we started in 2021. So let me give you a context. So quite new. Touchwood, they pivoted, and they are doing really well. So I won't say we have lost the money yet, and we have just started. So it's gonna take at least 1 or 2 years to at least know, So that's that I can tell about Lightning Ventures. Yeah.
Glad to say no. We did one in 2021, no losses, and then closed one just end of last year. So still too early to say.
Like I said, I'm only 2 years into the African Bitcoin investment space, so I have not had any losses. But I would say that I was probably lucky having come in the 2020, end of 2023, 2024 range, because I think there was a little bit of an overzealous Bitcoin VC market. Again, not pointing out to you, but a little overzealous from the entire Bitcoin VC community, giving insane valuations to early Bitcoin startups in 2021. And we're talking insane valuations, and I think it was because we thought that Bitcoin market was going to continue its trend. Well, what happened was the opposite. As Bitcoin does, it went down, and then it kind of just stayed flat for 3 years. So what I would say is happening in the space now is now the Bitcoin VCs are trying to recoup those black holes, not speaking for anybody up here, but they're recouping those by being much stricter on who they're investing in and what types of investments they're taking on, and then also trying to bring those valuations down to recover for those massive valuations back in 2021. So I was lucky enough to skip those massive valuations, and now I'm in the ball game of all these guys getting lowballed, which is, I want to say great for me, but we're seeing lower valuations in the industry because of what has happened in the past.
All right, thank you so much for our panelists. I'd just like to ask you, we're out of time, so can you just very briefly say if somebody wants to approach you, talk to you about their project, what's the best way to do so? Can they approach you here at the conference, or should they email you? Should they go to your website?
Happy to talk to anybody here at the conference, and then, you know, I'm sure the ladies will say the same thing, is like, you know, a no is usually a no. Don't be, you know, don't keep following up once you've gotten, you know, usually a no's a no, and it's really cool that you're building, and we say, you know, check back in a year, and not in 2 weeks.
Yeah, even if you're not looking for money, do approach a VC, because that's the best way to, you know, work on your pitch deck, work on your market strategy. The, you know, the kind of, I mean, I'm talking about good VCs here who give good guidance. So if you're looking for that, I'm here. Please connect to me directly, or you can reach out to our website. Yeah, that's the way.
Yeah, same. So website is p1.ventures, or you can, I'll stay around for a few hours today. You can catch me. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. May I please put your hands together for our wonderful panelists.